Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions. Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you.
Now entering the game for Philly Pressbox Radio, Bill Furman and Jim Chet Chesko.
It's Wednesday, November 8th, 2023. Welcome to the Philly Pressbox Radio Roundtable, brought to you by the Irish Rover Station House in Langhorne, PA, Allstate Insurance in Westchester, PA, Cavs, Philly Tailgates, and the Edge of Philly Sports Network. I'm Bill Furman. I'll be your host tonight, along with my partner, Jim Chet Chesko. Chet, the Eagles go into the bye week with an 8-1 record after a big win against those Dallas Cowboys. The Sixers have won 5 in a row going into tonight's matchup with the Celtics at the Wells Fargo Center. The Flyers, well, they've lost 5 in a row, and 7 of the last 9. They have only won 1 game since Carter Hart went out. Maybe we won't talk too much about that. Penn State has a whiteout Saturday at noon against Michigan in a game that makes their season. And you had a terrific time at the annual Philadelphia Hall of Fame induction banquet last week. Plenty to talk about that in Philly sports. But, hey, before we get to all that, happy birthday to you, pal.
Oh, yeah, 2 days ago. I got another year younger, so.
Well, there you go.
I'll tell you, though, between the Phillies, not the Phillies, between the 76ers winning games Saturday and Monday to extend their streak, Penn State routing Maryland on Saturday, and that thrilling Eagles win over the hated Cowboys on Sunday, it was quite a weekend and a nice little birthday present for me, I guess. And as you said, there is a big early season Sixers-Celtics battle happening tonight at the center, so lots to talk about.
Absolutely. And we'll throw one more thing in here. I don't know, we'll get to it later or not, but fresh news from the Phillies camp. It looks like Bryce Harper is now the regular first baseman. Kyle Schwarber becomes the DH. It looks like Rhys Hoskins is odd man out, most likely.
Sounds that way. Yes, sir.
All right. Well, hey, we have great guests tonight, a great guest tonight to talk all things Eagles when Bleeding Green Nation's Brandon Lee Gowton joins us. And I hear you have a few cameo guests that we're going to hear from a little bit later on as well.
Well, as you noted, I was at the Philly Sports Hall of Fame inductions last Thursday, I guess it was, and I was able to snag some one-on-one interviews with a couple of those new inductees, along with a current Philly sports media legend who some people love, some people hate. You nitwit, you moron. I think you know what I'm talking about. And our viewers will enjoy that whole segment, I'm sure.
All right. Looking forward to that. But, hey, let's get to it. Let's welcome Brandon Lee Gowton back to Philly Press Box Radio so we can talk some birds. BLG, welcome back.
BLG, I cannot hear you.
Unmute that guy.
I was muted. Sorry about that. Thank you for having me once again, guys. Appreciate it. And happy belated birthday to Chet.
Thank you, Brandon. Appreciate that. Boy, I don't know where to start. Okay, the Eagles are 8-1, and yet I hear a lot of people complaining that, they're not really playing that well. They haven't played many great games this year. Maybe the Miami game was their best. They pretty much escaped with that win on Sunday. Dak and company helping them out. Is this 8-1 team better than last year's 8-1 Eagles, or, are there concerns?
I think last year's team is better, but I think this team might be more impressive, if that makes any sense. I think that they're 8-1, despite not playing their A game, is kind of just it's really hard to do that. I think they're negative in the turnover differential this season, and yet they've almost won every single game they played. That's like really encouraging if you're going into it with the thinking that, okay, as long as they can iron some of these things out, they can be even better potentially. Of course, there's the other part of it. It's like, well, what if this is just who they are? So yeah. I think we're really going to find that out as we're going along here in these games that they have coming up against the Chiefs and the Bills and the 49ers and the Cowboys again and the Seahawks. As you have the schedule up here, we're really going to find out who this team is. But I mean, the way I look at it is, if you're an Eagles fan, who would you rather trade places with? Like, what other team out there is so enviable that you'd rather be in their shoes? I don't think there's a single team out there. You could say the Ravens, okay. They lost to Gardner Minshew and Kenny Pickett. The Chiefs, okay, they're the reigning Super Bowl champions. That's not exactly going out on a limb there, and they have issues of their own. So, I think the Eagles don't need to apologize for being 8-1.
Took the words right out of my mouth. I think people don't realize how hard it is. It's hard to be 8-1. It's hard to be good every week. And, we talked about this all along with Jalen Hurts. How much better could he get this year as compared to last year? Defenses are preparing different. He's seeing all kinds of new things. It's a whole new look for him. I think for the Eagles to be 8-1 is fantastic at this point.
And they're in a fantastic spot. Like, even if, okay, we can say maybe they're not quite as good as their record indicates. If you want to make that argument right now, they've still bought themselves so much cushion with this win over the Cowboys, especially. I mean, they're in a really good spot to not only repeat as division champs, they have an 88% chance, according to the New York Times playoff simulator. That's incredible, considering there hasn't been a repeat winner in this division since 2004. Yeah. Yeah. And they're in a pretty decent spot. It's not a lock, but they have a favorable path. Even if they go like 3-2, 2-3, you're looking at the 1 seed again in back-to-back years. They're in a really nice spot, and they have some cushion here to lose a couple games and still be okay.
Well, you mentioned the cushion. Is there concern about the Detroit Lions maybe catching? The Lions have a pretty easy schedule going forward, and we saw the Eagles schedule. They have this 5-game gauntlet coming up. Should we worry about the Lions at all snagging the number 1 seed?
Absolutely. That is a concern, like you said, just given how their schedule on paper is looking pretty favorable. Now, they play the Chargers this week, so that's going to be a really big game. That's probably the toughest game, maybe, other than the Cowboys game later in the year that they have going. So it would be huge for the Eagles. Eagles fans should be rooting hard for the Chargers to beat the Lions in LA this weekend. And then it'll be interesting, that Cowboys-Lions game late in the year, because there's a scenario potentially where Eagles fans are actually rooting for the Cowboys to win that game, because it might actually help the Eagles get the number 1 seed.
Yeah. Hey, Brandon, let's talk about this Cowboys game a little bit. A lot being said about how all the things that the Eagles didn't do in this game. I think Eagles fans don't like to do this. Don't give enough credit to Dallas. I think Dallas played really well. I think Dak played really well until the last series, when he made a couple tactical errors, like not taking the spike and taking a sack, and made a couple of mistakes there at the end. But I thought he played well, and I thought the Cowboys played pretty darn well all around.
Absolutely. I mean, they deserve credit. They very well could have won that game, if a few things go differently. Again, I said earlier, the Eagles don't need to apologize for being 8-1. They don't need to apologize for getting some fortunate breaks in this game. In their history against the Cowboys, there are plenty of examples. I can rattle off a bunch where I thought the Cowboys were on the other side of getting all of those breaks, and really for some time now, or at least a lot of them. The no clear recovery, kickoff fumble thing from 2019 or 18, I believe, among those. Like, it's about time, and I actually said this on BGN radio before the Cowboys game, that I was like, I think the Eagles are just kind of due maybe to get some luck, and sure enough, they fumble 3 times but recover them all, and that was a different story than when the Eagles played the Cowboys late last year, and the Cowboys fumbled. Eagles didn't get that, and the Cowboys jumped on the Eagles fumble. So sometimes those things just even out over the course of time, and again, nothing to apologize for that.
Brandon, there are some injury concerns. I mean, every team has injuries this time of year, but the Eagles have Nakobe Dean now back on the IR for a second time. We just heard that today. Dallas Goedert out for at least 3 or 4 weeks, they say, maybe as many as 6 weeks. And then you got Jalen Hurts with that knee bruise, the bone bruise. How concerning are these injuries, and what do they do to replace Goedert at tight end?
Yeah, the Eagles actually, they fared decently without Dallas Goedert last season. Now, obviously, you want him to be healthy. I don't think it's as simple as, okay, now you're just giving a majority of his workload to the likes of Jack Stoll and Grant Calcaterra and Albert O. And Nick Sirianni even said as much. I think it's more about, more 11 personnel looks. I think you could get Julio Jones a little bit more involved than you otherwise would have. Quez Watkins is able to return from IR as soon as the Chiefs game after the bye. Not that you're going to have him in a major role, but he could also get some of those targets. Olamide Zaccheaus, maybe he gets a couple more looks than he usually would have had. So I think it's kind of more about upping everyone else's workload that you already have there, as opposed to, again, going with your backup tight ends heavily all of a sudden. But yeah, I mean, the biggest one certainly is Jalen Hurts. And, no one can question his toughness. I thought it was such a defining moment in this game. The link, you could hear a pin drop at halftime after that sequence late in the second quarter, where it's like, is he even going to be able to come back out for this game and finish the game? And sure enough, he does. And then he takes off running on a third down to read Micah Parsons and pick up a first with his leg. So you're encouraged by that. And then he delivers an absolute dime to Devontae Smith just a few plays later. So, his toughness is something that certainly resonates with this team. And even though it's an issue, and I think it's hampering the run game as a whole, until he's not out there, I'm just going to assume he's going to be out there.
Let's talk about the defensive backfield. We got rookies running around all over the place, playing even out of position for their normal position as rookies. They're giving up a lot of yards. They're winning games. You concerned that they're going to get better? Are they going to get healthy? How's this going to play out?
So I think it was this week against the Cowboys that was the first time all season the Eagles had a secondary configuration starting for not the first time. Like they've just been using so many different secondary configurations due to injury, due to trade, adding Kevin Byard, a lot of different factors, moving pieces there. So I think they should, barring further injury, knock on wood, get some stability there, and I think that can kind of help with communication and getting on the same page with some of these things and getting a feel for each other. So I think that certainly helps. But yeah, I mean, it's not going to be a position of strength for this team. I think they are fundamentally weak over the middle. They don't have some of the best linebackers in the league. I think Nicholas Morrow and Zach Cunningham are doing a decent job, but they're not star players by any means. I think Reed Blankenship's having a good season on the whole. So that helps. But, James Bradbury having a down year. Eli Ricks / Sidney Brown in the slot is just not really an ideal situation. Two rookies not even usually playing in the slot. Getting Bradley Roby back could certainly help there. Again, not a star player, but someone who can at least give you some level of competency that I don't think they have. So I don't think it's a matter of the pass defense, being excellent or anything, but I do think there is room for them to improve and kind of just be merely average instead of bad.
Hey, Brandon, another concern for me is the running game. DeAndre Swift has not looked anywhere near the way he did in weeks 2 and 3 of the season. They rarely use Boston Scott. I know he was out for personal reasons this past week. Rashard Penny made a rare sighting this past weekend. Kenny Gainwell up and down. But in the Dallas game, for example, their last 3 drives, they could not get a first down when they could really have used one. Part of that was they weren't able to run the ball very well. What's going on there, and should we be concerned about that?
Absolutely concerned. Their first 5 games, they were averaging about like 164 yards or so, rushing yards per game, and then in the last 4 here, it's been down to like 86 per game. It's almost like cut in half. So they certainly have to figure that out. I think losing Cam Jurgens hurt them a little bit. It can't be the only reason the running game falls off a cliff, but getting him back, I think, will help it. I think part of it is just that I think defenses have kind of adjusted a little bit to how the Eagles were playing. And, they're trying to take the run a little bit away. They're obviously not having to account for Jalen Hurts' mobility as much, which I mentioned, and that hurts the running game. They have to figure that out. It's certainly crucial, not only as a whole, but like you mentioned, Chet, specifically in those end of game scenarios, the Eagles have been so good at that, just taking over the game, ending the game on offense, not even giving the ball back to the other team, bleeding the clock out. And in this game, their last 6 runs on those final 3 drives went for 10 yards. That is just not good enough. I mean, they never should have given the ball back to Dallas for that final drive. Brandon Graham's back-to-back sacks there that ultimately forced the turnover on downs. That should have been the end of the game. The offense should have been able to do their job. So they have to figure it out. Again, getting Jurgens back will be good. Maybe Hurts gets a little bit healthier with the bye week. We'll see. I think getting Rashad Penny involved more than not at all would help a little bit. So I do think there are kind of things they can adjust here to try to get better at it.
Brandon, let me throw this up from Michael Scott. Is this bone bruise something that can get worse, or can he play through this? Do we think if that's all it really is?
I think, again, like I said, I don't think he's going to be on the sideline until I see him on the sideline. I mean, I don't know. I honestly don't know where, this goes in terms of him getting healthier, if it's just something he has to deal with the entire season. But if he does, I mean, he's super tough. So he's going to tough through it. And really, with how we've seen him improve as a passer, obviously, from when he's gotten here, but specifically even just over the course of this season and having to be more of a pocket passer because not having that mobility. I mean, these past 2 weeks, especially against the Commanders and the Cowboys, I mean, he's been awesome. So big credit to him for adjusting and being able to make the most of that limited situation. Again, you hope that he can be able to use his legs at some point, but I don't really know that he will be able to do it to the same level of last year until we actually see that happen.
Hey, BLG, you mentioned Brandon Graham a few minutes ago. In a few weeks, he's going to surpass David Akers as having the most games played by anybody with the Eagles. What is his legacy, do you think, as a longtime Bird?
Well, he's got great initials. His middle name is Lee, so it's Brandon Lee Graham. But
How about that?
It's funny. I asked him about that one time at the Super Bowl, and he got a chuckle out of that. Brandon Graham is an all-time Eagle to me. He's like a Mount Rushmore kind of Eagle. He's not necessarily, the most talented player the team has ever had, but he is like the quintessential, like what it means to be a Philadelphia Eagle. And his career arc from, being considered a bust to going out and making the biggest play in Eagles franchise history in a moment where, like, that was the only moment I ever thought the Eagles might lose that Super Bowl, is when Tom Brady got the ball back because the Eagles hadn't forced a punt all game. And for him to strip sack Tom Brady there, it's huge. And still great to see him last year's first double-digit sack season ever, the one he had been chasing for a long time. This year, pretty quiet season, only had half a sack and 1 tackle for loss until Eagles need a stop, and he comes up big on back-to-back plays, super clutch. And again, if the offense does their job, that would have really closed out the game on their side of the ball there. So Brandon Graham is awesome. He's an all-time Eagle. He deserves this. Like, I don't think of anyone more fitting for a guy who should be the Eagles' all-time leader in games played. Brandon Graham is a jersey you can get for any fan and just be proud of, because that's a great player, an all-time important locker room guy, great vibes and energy, and just, I think, a good person too, by all accounts, a good family man that everyone can kind of just be proud of.
Hey, Brandon, we're at the halfway mark, and actually PJ put a comment on here right about what I was going to say. Definitely needs to run the ball more. My question to you to tie into that was going to be, we're at the halfway point. What's your take on Brian Johnson and how he's called the games? I think we all shook our head at 3rd and 3 the other day when we threw the ball down the field. But as you said, we weren't gaining yards. So maybe we're going to make the 3. And maybe that kind of justifies that. But a lot of questions from the fan base on Brian Johnson.
Yeah, I feel like I've been on the Brian Johnson island a little bit this season in terms of defending him. But I mean, you look at the results in terms of like points per game and a lot of the metrics, yards and everything. The Eagles are basically where they were at this time last year, or even over the course of the season. Like, I think for there not to be much drop off, and the red zone has gotten a lot better, by the way. Everyone was crushing Brian Johnson for that. The past 4 games, I believe, they're 12 of 16 in the red zone. So, like, that's improved. You have to give him credit for that. I thought he did a great job in this game on that drive where the Eagles started out, I think, at their own 13 or so. They go 87 yards and 11 plays, get that touchdown to go up 11 on Dallas. Like, that was a really good drive by both the players. I thought the play calling was on point there, too. So, I think Brian Johnson has gotten like a disproportionate amount of blame this season. Not to say he's been perfect, but I also think that, when Jalen Hurts was starting in 2021, I think there was a lot of sentiment that, this is truly his rookie year because, he played a little bit at the end of 2020, but, it was his first full season as a starter. I've not seen anywhere where like there's been a grace period for Brian Johnson, who's in his first season as an NFL play caller. So I think he deserves some of that grace. I think the results have not been perfect, but I think they've been good on the whole. And I think he is showing signs of improvement, as I just pointed to with the red zone. So I am optimistic about Brian Johnson.
Bill, we'll get Brandon's second half of the year prediction before he goes, but I got to squeeze in a Sixers question or two. What are your thoughts so far about this new Sixers team with the new head coach, Tyrese Maxey playing the point, James Harden gone? I kind of like what I'm seeing.
It's hard not to. I mean, I'm shocked. I think it's very surprising. It's almost they've set themselves up in a way to earn goodwill because the bar was moved so low after losing in the playoffs, and just the the weight of the James Harden situation for a while until he was finally traded. So expectations could not have been lower. So therefore anything good is like, oh, this is kind of refreshing and nice and better than expected. So I definitely think that's a factor. For me personally, I'm having fun watching them for sure. And I'm actually watching them, which I didn't think I would be. I definitely probably wouldn't have been if James Harden was still here. But I am still cautious because I've seen it before. Right. I've seen this. I can't fully buy in until they actually do get past the second round. But now, it's a nice start, and they play Boston tonight. Obviously, beating them would be a nice step in the right direction.
Hey, Brandon, speaking of the Sixers, we had D. Lynam on with us a couple of weeks ago. We had Kate Scott with us a week before that. And both of them, interestingly, questioned the leadership of Joel Embiid and whether he was capable of taking the next leadership step. The guy can flat out play. I mean, we can't argue that point. Is he ready to take this team to the next level? And that's always been my question with him.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair question. I know, you've been critical of Embiid, and look, I can't blame you. Again, I just talked about the playoff thing. Like, a lot of that is on him. For as much as James Harden didn't show up, I mean, he obviously had a couple really good games in that series, but the bad games were terrible, and no showing in Game 7 was really bad. But also Embiid no showed in Game 7. So that's a big question mark, and I think Joe has to hit that next level. I would think that if he's as good as we all think he is, and he is that player that everyone believes in, then he will have taken that as a learning experience. He will have, watched how the Nuggets won a championship and maybe try to, incorporate some more things in his game that can lead to that championship brand of basketball. So I don't want to bet against him because I love Joel Embiid, and he's the NBA's all-time points per minute player. Like, he's obviously amazing. He's fantastic. He was the MVP last year, but he has a lot to prove in terms of, powering his team through adversity and finally helping them break through.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, they could go 71-11, but until the second round comes around and we see how they do, I'm not going to be convinced. So I'm not buying in 100% just yet. Hey, Brandon, we put this up before, the gauntlet that's coming up for the Eagles. How do they do over these 5 games, and what do you think they end up the year over the 17 games?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm going to do my, rest of Eagles season prediction on bleedinggreennation.com at some point during the bye week here. But for now, looking at that stretch, I think they lose to the Cowboys. Cowboys have been really good at home. It's, obviously just kind of safe to project a split there. I think they win at least 2. I think they can win 3. I think they can do 3. The Bills have had their issues. The Chiefs haven't been perfect. 49ers obviously have lost 3 in a row. The Seahawks have looked good at times, but not so much against the better teams in the league. So I do think they can pull out 3 from this group here. And again, that would be huge because as long as you can kind of take care of business against the Giants twice, one of those games at home, obviously, and then the Cardinals at home, then you're really sitting pretty there, I think, for the 1 seed. Again, we have to see what the Lions do, but I think if the Eagles can go 3-2 in this stretch, I really like their chances to get the 1 seed.
I'm with you.
Me too. Well, Brandon, before we let you go, you mentioned Bleeding Green Nation. Let everybody know where they can follow you, what you got going on, dates, times, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, you can check out bleedinggreennation.com and the Bleeding Green Nation podcast feed where I do BGN radio with Jimmy Kempski. You can also check out the NFC East Mixtape podcast, which is always a good listen, especially this week where I am, talking about the Eagles beating the Cowboys with Blogging the Boys, Cowboys writer and podcaster RJ Ochoa. So definitely check that one out to see how he's dealing with the loss. And yeah, that's mainly it.
What time is that? Is that?
So we recorded that. That's on the Bleeding Green Nation YouTube channel in addition to the BGN feed. So those are already up.
I'll check that out for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Brandon, as always, thanks for taking the time. Still our leader in the clubhouse, right, Chet?
Number 24, 2 up on Ray Diddy. Yes.
I'm the Brandon Graham of the Philly Pressbox Radio.
There you go. Thanks, Brandon.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Brandon.
it as always.
See you guys.
See ya.
All right. Hey, Chet, winter is coming fast. Gas prices, they've dropped some, and that's a good thing. So you can even save more money with Allstate's pay-as-you-go auto insurance.
I'm excited about $3.13 gas that I just filled up my tank with yesterday. It was very exciting. Yes, Allstate. You know it, Bill. Pay-as-you-go auto insurance from Allstate puts you in control. You only pay for the miles you drive. With the same full coverage that a traditional policy offer, pay-per-mile insurance gives customers greater control of their insurance costs. See how much you can save with pay-per-mile car insurance by calling your local agent. In Westchester, Pennsylvania, that is Dave Lavoie. And by the way, in addition to auto insurance, Dave's Allstate office offers home and renter's insurance, life insurance, business insurance, and more. Allstate in Westchester. Call Dave Lavoie, 610-430-0700. Again, 610-430-0700.
Well, hey, why you have some extra dollars in your pocket from gas and insurance, you got money to spend at the Irish Rover Station House.
Always lots happening at the Irish Rover, Bill. You know this. They have dinner specials Thursday through Sunday. Killer Burger Thursdays. That cranky burger sounds good. Jalapenos. I don't know if I can handle the jalapenos, but hey, why not? Cranky burger. Music on Saturdays this weekend, courtesy High Five Swan. And they have New Belgium drafts all day for $4 on Saturday. Those are pretty good. I've had those before. Oh, coming up on Tuesday, the 14th, is Irish Rover Nitro Stout. Yeah, brewed in Dublin. Forged Irish Nitro Stout, $5 pints during happy hour, 5 to 7 p.m. Always a good time and great food and drinks at the Irish Rover. They're located on Bellevue Avenue in Langhorne. Details on their website, IrishRoverStationHouse.com.
Hey everybody, it's Willie Nile here, and you're listening to Chet and Bill on Philly Pressbox Radio. You lucky people.
Hey, by the way, I'll be seeing Willie Nile on the 17th. He's at the City Winery in Philadelphia. He's doing a career retrospective show. So 1 or 2 songs from all of his, 15 or whatever albums that he's put out. That is going to be fun.
Where is that?
City Winery in Philadelphia, Friday, November 17th.
Is that a venue? Or is that
It is a venue that opened, I think, about 4 years ago, and I've never been there. So it looks pretty cool from the pictures I've seen. I'm excited to check it out.
Pretty cool. All right. Hey, we were talking Sixers a little bit. Obviously, a very early sample size, and Joel Embiid is playing lights out. Any takeaways from Nick Nurse at this early stage?
I tell you, as I said, they are kind of pulling me back in. It just seems different now. It's like a breath of fresh air, with Harden gone. It just feels better. Embiid is back in beast mode again. 48 points in 29 or 30 minutes the other night. He seems to be in great shape, so that's good. Tobias Harris is playing better and better. He's more involved in the offense too under Nick Nurse, it seems. So that's nice. Tyrese Maxey, as we said, continuing to develop in that point guard role. In his last 2 games, he had 10 assists and a career high 11 assists. So keep an eye on him. Now, he had trouble the last couple of years against the Celtics. So we'll see how he does tonight and next Wednesday. See if it's different with Harden not on the court with him. Because I'll tell you, the frustrating thing about Harden was, he would hold the ball for 18 seconds and then, look for somebody open in the last 5 seconds. And I'm glad it's different now. There's a lot more ball movement. I like the way Maxey has looked in that role so far. Again, tonight is a big one, but I'm not going to, jump off the cliff if they don't beat the Celtics or even if they lose by 10. It's just one game. They play again next Wednesday and then not again until February, which is kind of weird. But right now, both teams are 5-1, their first meeting since that devastating Game 7 loss last spring.
Yeah, and you mentioned Tobias Harris. He, we talked about him over the last couple of years, and I always felt like he kind of just was kind of put in a slot, and it was that number 4 guy. Yeah, he could play, or he wouldn't have had that max contract in the first place. He could play, so now he moves up to the 3 spot. Now we're getting to see a lot more of him, and he's being much more aggressive on the offensive end.
Yeah, it's good to see. So Nick Nurse seems like he knows what he's doing. I mean, certainly he was a coach of the year several years ago, won a championship up in Toronto. And I'm impressed so far. I know it's early, long way to go, a lot of tough games ahead. And as I said, until they get to the playoffs, nobody's going to totally buy into this team. And he knows that. So we'll see where we stand next May and June, Bill.
Well, you know when I'm going to buy in a little more?
When?
Is when we don't have days off, when we're playing, no load management games. Let's play.
Well, so far, so good with that.
Well,
you know what?
6 games.
I know. There was talk that he was going to sit out game 3 for load managers because it was a back-to-back. And Nick Nurse said that Embiid will probably be listed as questionable every time there's a back-to-back because, just see how he feels after playing the game before. Hopefully won't happen too often, but you just never know. The funny thing is that second game next week against the Celtics, I believe, comes after they have a Tuesday game. So that would be on a back-to-back situation. Boy, if he doesn't play against the Celtics next Wednesday, people are going to be upset.
Yeah, he can't do that. They can't have that.
But, he's getting a lot of rest by sitting out fourth quarters when they have double-digit leads. The last 2 games, he got his massive point total in less than 3 quarters of play and didn't have to play the fourth quarter. So,
yeah.
He's getting
it's a long season. It's a marathon. Not a sprint. It's a marathon, but you got to play the games.
Yeah.
More on that later down the road, I'm sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's give a shout out to all the shows at the Edge of Philly Sports Network this week. The gang has all the bases covered. You can catch all the action on www.eopsports.com, as well as Edge of Philly Sports on YouTube. You can also find our show on Philly Pressbox Radio YouTube channel. Help us out by hitting those subscribe, follow, and like buttons. And as always, share with your family and friends. As you can see tonight, Chet, 6 o'clock, us here at 7 o'clock, Edge of Philly Sports live at 8:30. Sixers post-game, after the game. I mean, we're going from 6 till midnight on Edge of Philly Sports tonight, and we got it all week long.
Yeah, so hopefully you're enjoying us. And then at 8:30, you'll check out the EOP show with the Edge of Philly guys. And I want to tell you, they have a guest on there tonight by the name of Brooks Kubina. He is the new Eagles beat writer for The Athletic. And a little later in the show, I'm going to tell you something about him. So stay tuned for that.
All right. Well, hey, you had a chance to attend that Philly Sports Hall of Fame banquet that we talked about last week on Wednesday, the banquet being on Thursday. You had some pictures. I haven't really talked to you much about it other than looked at your pictures, said they looked like it was a good time. Tell us about it, and who'd you get to interview?
Well, it was a real good time. I mean, the pictures that you saw, you probably guessed that. A lot of Philly sports legends in the house, including, all of this or most of this year's inductees. So without further ado, Bill, here is what you missed. The Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame has been around since 2004, and last week the organization inducted its 20th class of Philly sports legends, and it was a terrific night at Live Casino. Now, because it was the 20th anniversary, the Hall invited past inductees to be there for the event, and more than 24 of them did show up, including former Eagles Bill Bradley, Ron Jaworski, Brian Westbrook, talking here with another past inductee, Ray Didinger, and the great Harold Carmichael. I had a nice chat with hole number 17, one of my favorite players from the 1970s and early 80s Eagles. There were a bunch of former Flyers there as well, including past inductees Bill Barber, Brian Propp, Jimmy Watson there to support his brother Joe for his induction. Hockey Hall of Famer Mark Howe was in the house as well. What a great player he was. And from the inaugural 2004 induction class, the great Bernie Perrant, another former teammate of Joe Watson's. Oh, these guys aren't in the Philly Hall, but it's always fun to see Oris Kindrachuk and Bob Kelly. Hound has been on our Philly Pressbox radio show several times over the years. From the basketball coaching world, Fran Dunphy was there, Herb McGee also, Speedy Morris, and Bill Ellerby. Also, writers Mel Greenberg and Dick Hoops Weiss, along with former Villanova and 76ers guard Wally Jones. Wally is 81 and looking great. And 2 amazing public address announcers were in the house, too. Dan Baker and Lou Nolan, both of them have been behind the mic for more than a half century. And how about this? A great Olympian, a South Jersey native, and certainly a track and field legend, Carl Lewis, was in the house. Seen here with the Philly Hall's Mike Conroy and with another South Jersey native and a 2023 inductee, Irving Fryer. Well, before the event got started, I was able to talk with a couple of this year's inductees, including the Axeman, Jeremiah Trotter.
Congratulations on being inducted into the Philadelphia Hall of Fame, Sports Hall of Fame. It's quite an honor.
Yeah, appreciate it. Definitely a huge honor, and I'm excited about it.
What do you think of the 2023 Eagles as you watch them?
Man, I love watching them guys play, man. Jalen Hurts, running the offense. You got great receivers, you got a running game, you got the best offensive line in the NFL, you got one of the best defensive lines in the NFL, especially when you talk about getting after the quarterback. And then got some young linebackers that are playing well, and the secondary is playing great too.
All right. What do you think the outlook is? They went to the Super Bowl last year. We know how tough it is to get back.
Right.
Get their 1 year.
Right.
Can they do it? Big tough schedule coming up.
They definitely can do it. I mean, they're winning games. They're not playing at their best right now, but in the NFL, it's about finding ways to win, especially when you're not clicking on all cylinders. And last for a couple of weeks, offense has been playing very well, and defense struggled a little bit against Washington, but. The biggest thing is just staying healthy. They can stay healthy. They definitely got the team to do it, and then clicking at the right time.
You miss playing the game at all?
No, I don't miss it at all, man. I mean, I left it all on the table when I played. Got no regrets, and that's a young man's sport. So right now, I'm living vicariously through my boys.
If you don't know, Jeremiah Trotter Jr. is a star linebacker at Clemson, and he happens to wear number 54, just like his dad. Another son, Josiah Trotter, is a freshman at West Virginia, but he is out for the season due to an injury. Now, here's the full list of the 2023 Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame induction class. You'll notice the name Carol Lewis. That is Carl's talented sister. Popular Phillies 2008 World Series champion Carlos Ruiz. Everybody loves Chooch. And Villanova two-time NCAA champion coach Jay Wright. So great to see Phillies former owner and chairman emeritus Bill Giles there for his induction. Mr. Giles is 89 years young, and while he gave a great induction speech, he talked about the early days of the vet, including Kite Man, plus the more recent Phillies success, taking a moment to thank the guys at WIP, including the night's master of ceremony, Joe DeCamera, for last summer's Trey Turner standing ovation. Our buddy Jack Fritz behind that, of course. This video, courtesy Cindy Webster.
I used to think that the miracle in life was winning the World Series. But as I get older, I now think the miracle in life is really your family and friends. And I'm happy today to say that 20 in my family. Loved my time in Philadelphia, and I'm still alive.
Did you catch that last part? I've loved my time in Philadelphia. I'm still alive. Bill Giles was just great last week. Former Flyer Joe Watson was inducted. We had Joe on our show just last week, the night before the ceremony. The boxer Bernard Hopkins is a new Hall of Famer. There's the great Philly native with our pal Mike Conroy. Oh, I took this picture of two of the inductees chatting at the event. That is 6'1" basketball star Valerie Still, who grew up in South Jersey and went on to become the University of Kentucky's all-time leading scorer among women and men. Talking with jockey Tony Black, who is 4'10", 111 pounds. Tony, by the way, gave one of the night's most enjoyable induction speeches, mentioning that he was impressed with Live Casino because their bathrooms, he said, even had low-to-the-ground urinals for jockeys. He was great. Oh, I interviewed another inductee before the night got going, the great wide receiver, Irving Fryer. The Mount Holly native played his college ball at Nebraska, and then he was the first overall pick in the NFL's 1984 draft by the New England Patriots. He played 3 very good seasons with the Eagles, then more than a decade later. Here's that chat.
Talking with the pride of Rancocas Valley High and a very dapper dresser, I might add. Irving Fryer. Irving, you played for the Eagles 96 to 98. What do you remember about those years under Ray Rhodes?
Look, I remember the vet that anytime someone would come to cheer on our opponent, and if they wore an opposing jersey, it was enter at your own risk. So no, it was a pleasure to come back home. I'm from this area over in New Jersey, and to play in the latter part of my career in front of my family. So I enjoyed it. It was a good time. Had great teammates. Still stay in contact with many of them. Love Ray Rhodes as a coach. And you know, there's no other town like Philly when it comes to sports.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
And you had some pretty good years, a couple of Pro Bowls, a couple of 1,000-yard seasons. And no offense, but the quarterbacks we played with were in between Randall Cunningham and Donovan McNabb. So, you know, the Detmers, Rodney Peete, Bobby, was it Bobby Hoyne?
Bobby Hoyne. You remember Bobby Hoyne.
And you put up some pretty good numbers. So
well, I mean, you just have to adapt. The ball's the same size. It doesn't matter who's throwing it. When it comes to you catching it, that's just a philosophy I developed that actually was given to me by my father.
And you had some personal issues, shall we say, 8 or 9 years ago, and I heard you on the radio the other day. You've been on kind of a redemption campaign ever since. So tell me about that. How are you doing that?
Well, I mean, life happens, and sometimes it's bitter, but we have to keep fighting, and that's what we're doing. That's what I'm doing right now. Just on that road to recovery, on that road to get back to where I was. I don't know if people like a comeback story, but that's what this is. It's a comeback story. Just trying to do the best that I can to get back to where I was and make a good name for myself.
And here you are tonight being inducted into the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame. That's a nice honor.
But you know what? It means that. It's a reaffirmation of what I've been able to accomplish on the field, and a reaffirmation for me as I receive it of who I am as a person. So it really, really means a lot to me today.
Irving, congratulations.
Thank you.
Great to meet Irving. Now, this other guy I talked with is a Philadelphia sports media legend who was actually a 2022 Hall of Fame inductee, though he wasn't able to be there last year for it because he was on the sidelines that night covering the Thursday night Eagles game. I'm talking, of course, about Howard Eskin, who, if you haven't heard, has recently been having a little feud with former Eagles great turned broadcaster Seth Joyner. Of course, that was one of the things I asked Howard about.
Howard, first of all, in light of the trade of James Harden, have your feelings toward Daryl Morey changed at all?
No, because what did he do? He messed it up the first time by making a bad trade. He could have had Tyrese Halliburton and Buddy Hield from Sacramento, one last first-round pick. The 2 first-round picks he gave to the Nets were better than what he's got now. The Oklahoma City pick won't be that good because they're going to be good. And the other one, the kid's in 7th grade right now, whoever they're going to draft in 2028. So no, what did he do? I mean, really, and he just got a bunch of nobodies with expiring contracts. Robert Covington's just so-so. I mean, so what did he do? If he's the general manager, when they make that first round, or the president, or whatever you want to call him, when they make that first round pick in 2028, the Sixers are in deep trouble. No, it has not changed. He's never won anything.
All right, second question. You got a little debate coming up at some point with Seth Joyner.
Seth who?
Are you concerned at all about that? You think you can take him down in a football debate?
Well, the thing is, he played 35 years ago. The game has changed. Just because you played football doesn't mean you know football. He was a really good player. But the game has changed so much, I don't think he understands it because he lives in it. 2 years ago, he wanted the team to blitz every time. I mean, it's not the same anymore. So am I worried about it? No, he says he played football for 13 years. I've been a broadcaster for over 35 years. So he's just got to stay in his lane.
Okay. And thirdly, last year at about this time, you were inducted into this Sports Hall of Fame in Philadelphia. You weren't here. You had to work that night.
I know, the only Thursday night game of the year was that night. So nothing I could do.
But what does it mean to you to be inducted into this great organization?
Well, it means a lot because of the people that are in there with you. When you're in the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame, you're in with a lot of really, really good people, whether they're players, but people, whether they're management, whether they're coaches, whatever it is, you're in with a lot of people. So I'm part of an unbelievable group.
Kudos to everybody associated with the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame, including President Ken Avalon, for just a terrific night at Live Casino. And full disclosure, since last spring, my radio partner Bill Furman and I are voters for the Philly Sports Hall. Congratulations to all of the 2023 Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame inductees.
Man, that was fantastic. Look, I'd say good time had by all, eh?
Oh, absolutely. It was really a fun night and great to talk to all of those guys.
Yeah, and I liked them all, but the Irvin Fryer was pretty good. It's
yeah, I had heard him on the radio a few days prior talking with Ike Reese and John Marks about his situation. He spent some time in prison 8 years earlier, and he talked about that. So I thought, well, yeah, I'm going to ask him about it, and I did, and he was very forthcoming about it. So real nice to hear from Irving and to see him, and hopefully going to get him on our show at some point too.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah,
very good. All right, let's jump into our predictions, Chet. It's prediction
Before
time.
we do that, I got to finish making my picks. So while we do that, Bill, how
you didn't
about
make your pick yet?
Well, no, I kind of did, but I just want to. I'm going back and forth on the one game. I'm going to make a final decision right now, right after we hear from our lawyers.
All right, guys, let's talk about Cherry Law Firm. If you get hurt at work in a motor vehicle accident, personal injury, or affected by criminal law, you got to call David R. Cherry of the Cherry Firm. Call 610-565-0300 or go to cherryinjurylaw.com. Let David R. Cherry fight for your rights. Again, that number is 610-565-0300. That's 610-565-0300 or go to cherryinjurylaw.com. Let David R. Cherry fight for your right.
Hey, Bill, prediction time, you said? I predict you will make another ridiculously bad pick this week.
Well, I guarantee you I'm not going last and changing my picks because you two guys picked the same one that I already wanted, and boy, did that blow up in my face in a terrible,
yes, it did.
way. And speaking of that, how stinking bad are the Giants? Holy cow.
They are dreadful. So let me give you a couple tips here, Bill. Never again pick the New York Football Giants, and don't ever go with a crappy team as your margin of victory pool pick.
Well, you're going to get the crappy teams too.
Eventually, but not this week.
Well, no, not this week, but you're going to get to them too. That part evens out, but man, how bad are they? And what a mistake that ended up being.
Yeah.
Me giving way to the fact that you guys had already picked the team I was taking too.
Yeah, that's not
that
how you're
won't
supposed
happen
to do
again.
It. Go with your head, Bill. Don't just try to pick something different from us.
Yeah,
anyway,
well.
in week 9, Boop and I were a perfect 5-0, believe it or not. You were a tepid 3-2 because you not only lost in the Giants game, you also took New England to beat Washington. So you were 3-2. For the season, Boop and I remain tied for the top spot at 26-11. You are now 4 games back at 22-15, Bill. When we get to the margin of victory pool stuff, you'll see that I'm pretty much running away with it. So you're going to have to hope that I get some bad teams and make some bad picks.
Well, you got to, because
eventually,
you got to get to them eventually. But okay, so let's go to it. You said where we are. Okay, let's get to the games. It was week 10. We've added a couple games since the Eagles are on a bye week. So we'll start out. We're going to go San Francisco at Jacksonville. The 49ers -3. Interesting game here. Probably the best game of the weekend.
And this is the one that I went back and forth with. I changed my mind about 5 times on this one, and I thought about changing it again. I can't imagine San Francisco is going to lose a 4th in a row. So ultimately, I did settle on Jacksonville. Let me see what Boop had to say. Again, I haven't.
Bill say who he's picking.
Boop says Doug Peterson's team is 1-0 in London, but 1-2 in Jacksonville. Make it 2-2. He's taking the Jaguars. You, Bill?
Jacksonville.
All right, we're all taking Jacksonville. I'm going to let you go next, first on the next one, Bill, which is New Orleans at Minnesota, right?
New Orleans at Minnesota. Minnesota's got major quarterback problems. Who knows how that's going to work out with Josh Dobbs now, the guy. I don't even really like New Orleans, but I'm going to say, You know what? I'm going to go with the home team. I'm going to say Minnesota figures out some way to get it done.
Yeah, I can't imagine they're going to get the kind of performance in week 2 from Josh Dobbs. I did catch the end of that debut of him with the Vikings last week, and that was pretty fun to watch, actually, but I don't see it happening again. I'm taking New Orleans. Boop is saying Kirk Cousins was vying for the Ron Jaworski Durability Award, 123 consecutive starts before his heartbreaking Achilles injury, October 29th. So, yeah, Kirk is gone. Boop is taking the Saints, just like me.
Yeah. All right. That gives us Washington at Seattle. The Seahawks are -6.5. The Seahawks just laid a huge egg last week while in Baltimore, while Washington pulled out a win in New England.
You want to hear what Boop says about that one?
Go ahead.
Boop says, winning at New England ain't what it used to be. Winning at Seattle is not going to happen. Seahawks. He's taking Seattle. So am I.
So am I.
All right.
Giants at Dallas. How about 16.5 they're laying in that game?
Yikes.
Holy cow.
Well, Boop says somebody has to pay for Dallas fumbling away a great opportunity at the link. Might as well be the I-95ers. He's taking the Cowboys. I'm taking the Cowboys. And you know what, Bill? Not only am I taking Dallas to win, I'm taking Dallas to cover that 16.5.
I can't argue that the way the Giants are playing. They are just terrible. And now Daniel Jones is out for the season as well. Not that was going to make a whole lot of difference, I don't think, but they certainly didn't get better there. I think we're all in on Dallas this week.
Absolutely. All right. Now we go to the margin of victory pool stuff, Bill, and check out this. I have somehow gone 9-0. And I'm getting some wins by big margins, like these last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. Oh my God, almost every week, double-digit wins. So I got 168 points. You and Boop are at 86 and 76. And this week, it's a no-brainer for me. I have not yet taken the Dallas Cowboys, so I'm going to be rooting hard for those Dallas Cowboys this week to win by 40.
Well, I wouldn't go that far to ever do that. It's bad enough I have to pick them, let alone root for them to win by 40. But, I think you're pretty safe there. I'm going to go, since we're down in the dumps here, I'm going to go Atlanta over Arizona. I'm going to take Atlanta because Arizona is almost as bad as the Giants. So,
it's probably a wise pick, but I think the line for that one is only Atlanta by 1.5, which is crazy.
Yeah, I think there's talk that Kyler Murray is going to be back. I don't know that makes a whole lot of difference because they're not very good. But and Atlanta's certainly not great either. But I got to use them at some point, and I think that's the next best game to that Dallas Giants game.
And Boop is taking those Cincinnati Bengals against whoever the hell they're playing. So there you go.
Okay. All right. Let's see if we can close the gap a little bit on this one. In the meantime, tell us what's going on with football season in full swing for Bob Cavanaugh and the gang at Cavs Philly Tailgates.
Well, Cavs has been cooking up a terrific catering business now for more than 30 years. Known best for their tailgate parties, Cavs is a 3-time winner of Philly Tailgate's Jack Daniels Great American Tailgate Party Contest and a past winner of the Philly Daily News Tailgate Award. Cavs also does corporate events and parties, you name it. And if you check the website, you will see, come on, tell me I don't have it up here. I thought I did, and I don't see it. Cavs has a whole bunch of games coming up. There they are. Here we go. The remaining Eagles home games, including November 26th against the Bills, and then that Niners game, December 3rd, and New Year's Eve, the Cardinals come to town. How about that? Well, Cavs will be there outside live casino with the tailgates. So check out all the details. If you have any questions, you can email them at cavscatering@verizon.net. Cavs Philly Tailgates is the way to go. And as you probably know, Cav works with Vince at Philly Sports Trips. They are the folks to use for all Eagles road games and more. And you can still get in on the Birds road trips for later this season. Check that website. That is phillysportstrips.com.
Well, hey, Chet, speaking of sports trips, Michigan is coming to Happy Valley to play Penn State on Saturday. This is the Penn State season right now. And first of all, what do you think of the game being at noon, because TV is making it at noon? So we've got a daytime whiteout instead of a nighttime whiteout. What do you make of this game for the Nittany Lions?
Well, as you said, it is huge. Obviously, the Wolverines are undefeated. It doesn't surprise me that Michigan is favored, but I've seen them favored by as little as 4.5 points and as much as 6.5. Of course, there's that whole sign stealing, cheating, scouting stuff going on in the background for Michigan. Who knows if that'll be any sort of a distraction. It is going to be quite an atmosphere at noon, as you said, Saturday in Happy Valley. I don't know if it makes a difference what time the game is. I just know it's going to be a wild crowd, and I'm hoping Penn State can pull this upset off. Minor upset.
Yeah, well, there's a whole lot more fueling that goes on before the 7:30 games, 8 o'clock games than there does before the noon games.
Yep.
So there's that. But big game. Penn State certainly has a chance. I don't know if they have the horses. But I will tell you this, Chet. I've been reading about this for 2 weeks now. I don't want to hear any more about the Michigan sign stealing, blah, blah, blah. Win the game on Saturday on the field. And if you want them suspended so they can't be in the playoff, beat them. Just beat them. Yeah. Be done with it. Win the games. Yeah. You know what I mean? Get over all that.
You. James Franklin has not won a whole lot of games against ranked teams, so it would be nice to get that, off his back. I don't know.
Well, I think what they have to do. I don't know if I'm going to make a prediction. I'm going to say this: if they come out and play conservative like they played against Ohio State, they're going to lose. Yeah. If they come out and be aggressive and get after the passing game and let Drew Aller do his thing, they got a chance to win that game. If they're going to just try to win it up front, they're not going to win.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Okay. Great guest tonight.
Before I tell you about the guests, I want to mention I got an email from a friend of mine, a guy I met about 1.5 years ago at the Philly Sports Banquet, not the Philly Sports Hall, but the Philly Sports Writers Banquet, which they had in May of 2022. Last year, and we became friends. I told him about the show, and he's been listening lately. A guy named Tom, and he sent an email about something else the other day, and he said, I just want to mention how much I enjoy Philly Pressbox Radio. Since Angelo Cataldi left, I don't think sports talk radio in Philly is the same. Philly Pressbox Radio has helped fill that void for me. I like having good sports talk on while working in my home office. You and Bill do a great job. So there. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
And I'm not going to disagree with him.
No, we'll take whatever we can get. That's for sure. Thanks, Tom. Appreciate that. All right. Tell us, Brandon Lee Gowton, as always, great tonight. And who we have coming to Philly Pressbox Radio next week?
Well, next week, Bill, we have 2 first-time guests on the show. Both of them will be with us live. Remember about a half hour ago, I mentioned the name Brooks Kubina. Turns out Edge of Philly has him on their show tonight at 8:30. I booked him about 2 weeks ago for our show next week. Brooks Kubina, the new beat reporter for the Eagles for The Athletic. So we're going to meet Brooks talking all things birds. And Bill, you are going to love this second guest. He is a massive Penn State football fan. And this Saturday, he will be attending his 500th consecutive Nittany Lions game, home and away, over the last 40-plus years. And yes, that includes the COVID season. We'll tell you how he pulled that off. Ed Sirianni is his name. I don't think he's related to Nick, but like me, he's a Schuylkill County, Pennsylvania guy. And I'm excited to talk to Ed Sirianni next week. And
that will be really cool.
Yeah, he'll be there Saturday for the 500th straight game.
Very neat. Hey, one final question before we got to go. We mentioned about the Phillies. Bryce Harper going to be the new first baseman.
Yeah,
Hoskins looks like he's out. You okay with that? Do you like this setup?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I would love to have seen them bring Reese back, maybe a 1-year contract, put Bryce in the outfield, maybe trade Nick Sirianni. Castellanos. Don't trade Nick Sirianni. Castellanos and but it's not going to happen, it looks like. So Reese will be gone in all likelihood, and he'll have certainly made a lot of memories for Phillies fans with that bat spike and everything else last year.
Yep. Time to move on. It's the way it always works out, isn't it?
Speaking of moving on,
let's do
we're
it.
outta
Let's
here.
wrap it up. Let's thank tonight's special guest, Brandon Lee Gowton, our sponsors, the Irish Rover Station House, Cavs Philly Tailgates, PPCC 118 Raz Room, and Dave Lavoie of Allstate Insurance in Westchester, PA. For Jim Chet Chesko, this is Bill Furman. We hope you enjoyed the show. We'll join Philly Press Box Radio next Wednesday, November 15th at 7 p.m. You can see us live on Facebook and on our Philly Press Box Radio YouTube channel, and listen on Google Podcasts as well as Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and all the others. High hopes, Philadelphia sports fans. Sixers Celtics, Chet. Let's go, Sixers.
Happy trails to you till we meet again.